So Katherine is a kickboxing black belt.
We don't embrace creative methodologies enough. I think people sometimes worry when you get together as a group in a kind of workplace event that using the word playful means awkward, uncomfortable, that time and space to be creative shouldn't be an add-on to your day-to-day, it should be a core part of it.
Curious Conversations.
So today on this episode, we have Katherine Perrin. So Katherine is a kickboxing black belt. Is that right? So,
It is, yeah.
Kickboxing black belt, a mum, a runner, a social impact consultant, LEGO Serious Play Facilitator, and a coach. And also my cousin, probably fair to say. So welcome, Katherine, to Curious Conversations podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you have a passion for creativity, curiosity, and innovation?
Yeah, thank you. That was an interesting summary. I guess it's a theme through all of my career so far, and particularly now I'm self-employed as a freelance consultant. I've realised that value in having a curious mindset opens up so many doors to learning, to growth, to understanding, to being innovative. And particularly with the method of LEGO Serious Play that I'm certified in, it is fundamental, that gentle playfulness that is so crucial to coming to new insights and understanding new perspectives.
Super. Right, so at the start of every podcast, we ask one of our guests to complete a fun, hands-on challenge to create something imaginative, showing how play can fuel creativity and innovation. So, Katherine, you should be able to do this quite easily. Here is some Lego. In the next few minutes, could you create something that represents your curiosity?
Yeah.
If you open it up. That's it, lift it that way. That's it.
Do you want to tip it out?
You can do whatever you want. You can tip it out, you can... There you go. You grab that one out of the way.
Something that represents my...
Curiosity.
Yeah.
And it can be whatever you want. It can be... You can freestyle a little bit. And as we said on the way across here, a lot of this stuff you probably recognise anyway. So this should be your superpower. You should be able to smash this out. Done this loads of times before.
I get other people to do it. It's fun to do it myself.
So what are you thinking about at the moment?
I'm thinking about nature and growth.
Nice.
I'm thinking about development. And these are just gorgeous and tactile, and I always find them irresistible, even if they're really hard to put together sometimes.
So when I ask you the question, did you think you instantly come up with something you sort of knew what you would do? Or are you going to freestyle it a little bit and go, I like that?
No, I'm freestyling because I didn't know the question you were going to ask. So I'm just assessing the bricks. And in the true way that you run LEGO Serious Play, one of the fundamental rules is don't have a meeting with yourself. So don't spend too long thinking about it. Pick the bricks that speak to you.
Nice. What's speaking to you at the moment?
So
Green.
Yeah, I'm just loving that focus of, I think there's something about nature at the moment, probably the weather's influencing me. But something about growth and development is really coming through for me.
You should probably have something white and blue, representing the rain and the cold.
No, I'm positive. I think it's going to come back.
So as I was telling you, so the box that you saw and this Lego sets now appear in every single one of our meeting rooms, and it's there we've got some QR codes to help people, teach people how you could use it in having conversations or creativity. And then we've asked people, once they, in their meetings, so they build something, take a picture and we'll share it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we'll do at the end of this podcast is take a picture of you with your one as well.
Okay. Ah! Oh no! Hang on.
Try again.
I've lost it. Hang on. Oh, there's something you could say about being fragile here. I'll try again with that. Ooh, there we go.
Is that it? You done?
Yeah. I'm just
sure?
going to secure that
Do you want to add some more stuff on?
No, I'm good.
So it looks like you're now finished now, Katherine. So would you like to explain what you've created and the inspiration behind it, please?
Yeah, so I've got a strong theme of the natural world, of growth and development through, I always think of plants with these room bricks. Something about building and growth coming up, progression. This one's kind of representing innovation and ideas, and this one is doing kind of outward looking.
Is it, what sort of face is it? Is it a smiley face?
It's a plain happy face.
Okay, good. So if you do feel like, as we go through the rest of the podcast, you feel like you want to add to it, feel free, mess about all you want.
Okay.
So we'll jump into a few questions now. So my first question is, so we as construction professionals, like project managers, quantity surveyors, aren't really recognised as being creative, like an architect or an interior designer. So in your experience, do you think that creativity is taught or is it an innate skill?
It's a really good question. My personal view is we're all creative. And I think there's something about how we're brought up that often quashes that, I think. We lose it, I think, as we grow up. Something about the formality, the traditional rules of workplaces, for instance. And I think it's easy to take quite a narrow definition of creativity. And actually, there are loads of different ways that we can be creative, from kind of self-expression to how we make decisions. So I think it's really important to have a really wide definition of creativity and embrace how that plays out in your personal and professional lives.
So do you think, this I suppose comes back to this LEGO Serious Play stuff you do. Do you think that has helped, in the experience of you doing the sessions with people, do you think that's helped in terms of bringing people's creativity back out from when they were a child into adult life?
Yeah, 100%. So there are some people when they go into a session with the method, they fully embrace it from the beginning. They're just naturally that little bit more open. They might have regularly done creative things up until that point. And some people, you find there's been a gap since they've done that very kind of open creative process. And particularly in the workplace, I think we don't embrace creative methodologies enough, which I think is why this method can gain so much traction in so many different organisations and industries. So sometimes it takes people a little bit of time to bed into it, which is why we often do a kind of introductory exercise to get people using the bricks, understanding the concepts that we're going to use before we go into the meat of the session. But it really is at the heart of why the method is so successful, because it unlocks that gentle playfulness. And I say gentle, playful really intentionally, because I think people sometimes worry when you get together as a group in a kind of workplace event that using the word playful means awkward, uncomfortable, fun, and that is the the last thing you want to do. What it is an open, gently fun way of doing something really different, which can unlock a different side of you and therefore get really different new perspectives.
And probably the same across most offices and professional industry. Effectively, we've lost our creativity and lost our ability to play, is probably.
And I think the other side of it is not just in terms of the outcomes that you're going to get from it, but also there's something about when you enjoy what you're doing, like the method itself is fun.
Yeah.
That for me is hugely valuable because you're going to remember it and it's going to bed in far more than that kind of more traditional dry flip chart.
Yeah.
And there is a time and place for that. But yeah, there's something about this method where people enjoy it, they come away talking about it, they're going to remember it, has longevity outside of the session.
Yeah. So the next question, so outside of our professional lives, we're inspired by our lived experiences, and some people have had some really interesting stuff, some people have had what they believe is slightly dull, but it's probably still interesting. So I'm wondering what advice you'd give to someone looking to find their own inspiration when at work, and what role does that inspiration play in the creative process?
I'd probably come back and say that I think a lot of people are inspired in their professional lives as well as their personal lives. And I think it can be a combination of personal lived experience and professional learnt experience. Those two can come together. And And I think inspiration is really important in terms of creativity. But I think what's most important is the insights. So you can be inspired by lots of different things, but what you want to get is a different way of looking at something, new information, looking at something with a different perspective. And I think sometimes changing the way you're approaching a situation can give you that. Inspiration is hugely important for creativity. You can get it from lots of different ways. You can have, I love the phrase, like, your network is your net worth. I can't remember who said it, so I can't credit it. But, it can be incredibly powerful to surround yourself with good people, mentors, people who are doing really innovative, new, different things. And challenge yourself to try different things can be incredibly powerful.
Where do you seek inspiration from? Because you're obviously, you are a creative person. You do this. You, as you said earlier, you've done loads of different stuff in your career, in your life. So there must be some times when you go, oh, I just can't be inspired anymore. Or is there always a case of, I can always find something that's going to inspire me, apart from your children, obviously?
I don't think I suffer from a lack of inspiration. But I appreciate I come from a really lucky position that I do work that I love, and I'm really lucky to work with really interesting people and really interesting organisations. And that for me is my huge inspiration. So often the work that I do doesn't feel like work, and I feel like that's a really, really lucky place to be. And I think it's really important to love what you do. And I think then it shows in the results that you get and the relationships that you build. But coming particularly from a non-profit background, because people are so purpose-driven with that social impact in mind, you get pulled into their cause. And there's something incredible about seeing the impact of that work play out. And I could give you loads of examples of where I've used this method in professional settings, and the impact of it you can see is going to be huge and long-lasting. Nice.
So every client we typically work with in our industry, in the built environment industry, ultimately has a problem that needs a solution. So do you think that being curious helps in problem solving and decision making?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're curious, you want to find out more information. And I think it's a really important way to go through life, because you have to recognise that your experiences, your biases, you come at situations with your own lens. And to have a curious mind means that you're taking in anything else in that situation, other people's perspectives, the context that you're working in. You're trying to look at something from lots of different angles. You're taking inspiration from other sectors, other organisations, other industries. I think it's a cultural thing that you have to embed in organisations, and that can be really hard to do. You have to have alongside that a willingness to try things and fail, but take the learning from that, and that can be quite a brave place for organisations to step into. But I think there's something really important about, I think it was Einstein, wasn't it, who said if he had a problem, he would spend most of the time understanding what the problem is before he looked at solutions. And I think there's merit to that, because once you've understood the problem, then the solution can be much simpler. And having that curiosity means that you've assessed the situation to such a degree of depth that you've then found a path through into what could be the solution.
So I'd like to explore the subject around failure.
Yeah.
So failure, and we had it on our previous podcast, failure is generally seen as a bad word in professional organisations, but it's been proved time and time again. I think one of the chief execs of IBM said, show me somebody who's failed and I'll show me my most valuable employee, because obviously every time you fail you learn a bit more, and there's a lot of embedded learning. So how have you, some of the organisations you've worked with, not-for-profit ones, some of the stuff you're doing at the moment, how have you found their approach to failure, and how have you managed to change their mind around failure? Sorry, it's a bit of off script, like restarting.
That's a great question. I think you're right to highlight that failure historically has had a lot of negative connotations. And I think that's why I pulled it back to that cultural perspective, because you need to have a culture in an organisation where that is role modelled from the leadership and beyond, to appreciate that if you're going to go into brave and innovative spaces, failure is an inevitable part of that. That you need to own that and take responsibility for that, but that you can take the lessons and you can share that. So there's something about the kind of personal accountability and something about the organisational culture that have to go kind of hand in hand. Across organisations that I've worked with, there's been a mixture. Some organisations really are able to put themselves on the line, and I think that comes down often to the individuals who are leading them, where they're able to showcase, I'm newer in this role, or I'm newer in this space, or I don't have all the answers, let's try together. And that kind of design thinking approach where you have developed a bit of a prototype, you test it, you learn, you iterate, is such a powerful one, because I think it's rare you hit on that final solution the first time round. You want to try, you want to test it and go, oh, okay, that had an unintended consequence, or it's, it's not landed with X audience as well. So I think there's that learning process that's, just really, really important. Yeah,
I think one of the things that I've found in the construction and property industry is that we generally jump to a solution. We understand what the problem is, because actually the solution means you don't have to go through the iteration, you don't have to show failure, you don't have to test with people. So, and then you understand, effectively those things generally fail anyway, and then people leave them anyway. So that's brilliant, thank you. So next question. So as a business like ours, we have pressure on employee time, obviously need to make money, we have shareholders. So for organisations, people with little time for free thinking, how would you help them innovate or be creative?
Yeah. A couple of things, I guess, come to mind. One is, I guess, realising how important it is that time and space to be creative shouldn't be an add-on to your day-to-day. It should be a core part of it. So one, I think, again, probably coming back to that cultural point, has to be embedded that it's essential. It's not a bonus activity. I think the other thing that comes to mind is don't do what you've always done. So, and I can hold my hands up, I'm still guilty of it. I chain myself to the laptop, even when I'm trying to do deep thinking work. And actually what you should be doing is going out, getting fresh air, moving your body, talking to other people, using different tools and physical things.
Do you think that's a habit because that's what everyone else does, so therefore you think, I can work harder if I'm chained to my laptop and I can do more efficient stuff?
I think it's something to do with the very traditional concept of work still, that we are still largely thinking in 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, at a screen for, obviously not every industry, but increasingly that's the concept of work. And actually I think we need to appreciate that sometimes you can go for a run and come up with a brilliant idea because you're moving your body, and actually you've changed the way you're thinking about it from conscious to passing that over to your subconscious, and they can do the deep work. And
a lot of deep breathing with it as well. Well, depending how
depends how well you run.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about changing the way you think about it. I think there's something about getting other people involved. So if you're really interested in trying to be more creative, try and dedicate some time to it and try and get other people on board. So think about different ways that you could run meetings, run sessions, etc. And obviously what I'm going to say is try different tools, of which LEGO Serious Play can be one of them, because a different way of tackling a problem can really change the outcome that you achieve.
Have you found, or do you see people being embarrassed about trying new things and being? I was thinking, obviously we've introduced Lego into our meeting rooms now, and trying to get people to interact with it and play with it and look, because ultimately they'll look different because they're not doing, but they have to be curious and to go off and go and do it. Do you find that people suffer from being seeing what their peers would think of them by going off and doing something different and being creative?
Yeah. The short answer is occasionally. I think the longer answer is that a lot of my work is about bringing groups together. And a core part of what you need to do is to set the right tone for a session. So in the same way that we laughed about icebreakers, they come with good intent. They come with the intent of understanding people's names or where they are at that particular day, getting to know people better. The intent is there, but you have to be really careful about how you position it. And often people have a bad experience with icebreakers because they ask you to think of, some kind of novel fact, and then the panic sets in as the table goes around. You think, oh, what can I share that's professionally appropriate and but novel and different? So a part of the skill of, I think, facilitation is knowing how to set the tone for a session, how to introduce topics, and how to set that psychological safety, often it's called, of a session, to say it's okay to get this wrong. Particularly with something like LEGO Serious Play, one of the things that we often say is there's no wrong answer, which is part of its beauty. We all build and share based on our own particular life experiences, perspectives, job roles, personal lived experience, which means that every build is unique and valuable in its own right.
Nice. So innovation has helped shape our built environment, where we live, where we work, where we're doing this podcast at the moment, and how we interact with it. So with what you see, what you come across in your life, and I know this is not an area of your speciality, which is why we'll probably want to ask you the questions. You get a different perspective on it. But if you had a crystal ball, what do you think our future built environment looks like, or how, not necessarily how it looks like, but how we would interact with it?
Yeah. I'm going to go with a really optimistic answer here.
Good.
So I don't know whether it fits with the crystal ball aspect of the question, but I think I would go with, I would love to see our built environment more in synergy with our natural environment. I would love there to be better recognition that we're living on a very fragile planet, and that I think what the world needs is a built environment that is sympathetic to the natural one, that works in collaboration, or even ideally benefits the natural world, so that we are protecting and preserving that, rather than utilising it just for the here and now.
Have you seen anything? I suppose have you been inspired by anything as you walk around? You travel around the country, came into London today. Is there anything you go, that's what I like, and that's what I'd like to see more of?
Nothing that I saw necessarily in that way, but I saw a clip, and I can't now remember the city it was based on, which is typical. But there was this really lovely clip I saw recently of a city that had a really urban look, dual carriageway both sides, surrounded by buildings. And it was like a time lapse over, I think, a shorter period as kind of maybe 4 years. Yep. And they'd narrowed the roads to single lane. They'd put in really wide bike lanes. They'd hugely increased the greenery. And the look, it was transformed, the look and feel of it. And that for me was just hugely inspirational of a shift in priorities. Yeah.
Do you think, so I suppose going back a few years, the pandemic as well. So do you think pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, how you interact with where you live is very different now? Or do you think it's exactly the same, or how you see it is very different now?
Yeah, I think it is. And everyone had a very different experience, didn't they, of the pandemic? Yep. And I guess the context to my answer is I had a toddler and a newborn. So I think mine was very much about survival in that setting, because my littlest was only about 6 weeks old. I discovered bits of our city that I'd never seen before. So in those periods where we were allowed to go out, but we were really careful to be distanced, we basically sourced every tiny pocket of greenery, woodland, and it gave me a whole new perspective on Brighton that I'm from. So in that respect, that was really lovely to discover new parts of the city. And
do you still, I suppose, explore it? Has it opened your mind to be a bit more curious around where you live, where you go, and start looking for, now I suppose you were sort of forced to do it a few years ago. Do you now do it now as a habit of instead of like coming to London, instead of taking the tube, you walk places, so you can take a different route or things like that?
I do. I think a large part of that, though, is from a parent perspective, that I think there's a big lesson I've taken from my kids about slowing down. That I think as adults, again, something that we've lost maybe the art of is just being, and just being gently curious about everything around us. And I think there's a period most parents go through of trying to get from A to B and getting really frustrated that it's taking you twice, 3 times, etc., as long as you would think it would take, because they found a stick, or they're obsessed with the leaf they found, or they're, talking to someone
Having a tantrum.
they met. Yeah, that too. And there's something really grounding and lovely about going, you know what? I could let go of that time limit that I've imposed on us getting to, X place.
That, I think, as a parent, that is quite hard to do. Isn't
Really hard. I'm not saying it's easy at
No.
all. What I'm saying is I'm still a work in progress, but I've got better at it.
Yeah. And do you do, I suppose, when you haven't got the kids, so like today, do you find yourself being more present in what you're doing and appreciating what you have and what you see around you?
I do. I think that's also a bit of a life lesson of kind of where I'm at in life as well. I think there's something about the way life is really fast paced at the moment, increasingly digitalized. So I find myself with a sort of feeling like an almost constant to-do list, often tied to my phone or another screen. And I think it has to be a really conscious effort to step away from that, put that away, listen to the birds, people watch as I did before meeting you today, and actually there's something really lovely about that. But again, it's a bit of a lost art when we've got everything at our fingertips through a phone in particular that just kind of pulls our attention constantly. Yeah,
it is a bit of a nightmare, but hey ho. So that sort of concludes some of the questions. So one thing it'd be good for you to explain to our listeners about any exciting projects you're working on, some of the stuff you do around LEGO Serious Play, how people can get involved with it. If they've got, one of the things that we found is that when we started introducing LEGO into offices, people are going, I've got loads of LEGO at home, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to give people an idea about how they can use it, some of the stuff that you're currently doing, what's your career pivot going to be next, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
You can take a bit about through that?
Yeah, of course. So I'm really lucky. I'm working with some really lovely organisations at the moment. So I'm doing some training and development work. I'm an associate with a lovely organisation called the Relationships Project, which is looking at how to build relational ways of working, and realising that relationships are the foundation of everything, and we need to prioritise those in order to achieve the wider goals. I'm doing some lovely work involving lived experience in grant making with a funder. With the LEGO Serious Play, I'm doing a range of events coming up, actually. So everything from big conferences to smaller group work. And like I said, its beauty is its flexibility. So some of that is around kind of big professional development objectives, and some of it is deep, meaningful kind of connection and relationship building type work. So it's hugely flexible. You can find more information on my website, which is katherineperrin.com. And I'm always happy to talk to an organisation who has the hint of an idea but doesn't know where to go with it, because we can talk through how the method could apply. And I'll always be upfront if it isn't the right method and there's something else that we can do instead. I've got lots of lovely work planned out with my giant cases of Lego. They're off to Leeds and Edinburgh next week. And then I think next I've got some lovely ideas brewing around some leadership development programs that I'm brewing with a colleague, and I'm currently designing up facilitation training, because something that I've come across time and time again working with small and large groups is that facilitation is one of those cross-cutting skills that we often don't realise is essential in so many different areas of our work, whether or not you're a leader, whether or not you're managing groups. So I'm seeking to pull on some of the experience that I've built so far and developing a course that I'll hopefully be rolling out end of this year, beginning of next year.
Nice. Anything in personal life? Now you're black belt in kickboxing.
I've started karate. So I'm chasing my oldest through the belts.
Okay. And where are you now?
I'm on red.
Okay. Still
Yeah,
got a way
fairly.
to go.
Yeah, fairly.
And then
at the
after
bottom.
that, another jiu-jitsu maybe? Boxing?
Well, why not? You've got to keep. I think there's something really lovely about keeping, having new ambitions. It keeps me busy, keeps me fit, keeps me healthy.
Well done. So, my son's going to try and he wants to try kickboxing as well. So you've inspired one person already. Well done.
Fantastic. I'll
Well
take
done.
him on next time I see him.
That's right. Don't try and hit him or anything. So as a thank you, we'd like to make a donation to a charity that you support. So would you like to tell us a little bit about the charity and why you chose them?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to nominate the Clock Tower Sanctuary in Brighton. So they are a wonderful local charity to me who support young people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And they do incredible work. And I think homelessness is, particularly in young people, something that's really misunderstood. And I think young people in particular at this kind of crisis point with a perfect storm of the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis. And a lot of the services aren't set up to support young people and their particular needs. And so, they would be my nominated charity, and I'm sure
Lovely.
they'll be delighted.
Lovely, thank you. So this sort of brings us to the end. So I'll give you one last opportunity if you want to change anything on your Lego thing, or you want to build extra stuff. There's plenty of Lego around. I see somebody's built a car or something as well.
Yeah, there's definitely something from previous.
Yeah, something brewing there as well. So thank you, Katherine, for sharing some incredible insights today. To our listeners, we hope you stay curious, stay creative, and hope to see you on the next edition of Curious Conversations.
Curious Conversations.